Aguero, Solskjaer, Deeney, Watkins. Sure, you know all about those last-minute goals, but have you heard the one about the on-loan goalkeeper who saved his temporary employers from disappearing out the Football League and into almost certain financial oblivion? Back in 1999, Carlisle United, managed by Nigel Pearson, were fighting to stay in the Football League. Carlisle's finances were precarious with a capital P that season, leading to a scenario where, with 3 games to go, they had to ask the FA to sanction an emergency loan deal to bring in a goalkeeper. Swindon Town's Jimmy Glass arrived at the club. His efforts in his first 2 games earned the Cumbrians 2 draws. Those vital points meant that Carlisle went into their final game of the Division 3 season, now League 2, needing to beat mid-table Plymouth Argyle in front of their own fans and hope their relegation rival Scarborough didn't win against Peterborough at home. The game at the McCain Stadium finished 1-1, and with the same scoreline at Brunton Park deep into injury time, Scarborough's fans invaded the pitch en masse, believing their Football League status was secure, convinced they'd done enough to stay up. However, there'd be one more plot twist. Carlisle won a corner in the dying seconds, and up came Jimmy Glass. In one of those you couldn't make it up moments, Glass scored from a rebounded header and was promptly swamped by teammates and thousands of fans who quite simply couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. As for Jimmy Glass, he became an overnight celebrity, but he never played for Carlisle again, and his playing career never really kicked on after that defining moment. He took on various jobs outside of football before finding his way back into the sport as player liaison officer at Eddie Howe's Bournemouth, and most recently the general manager at non-league Wimborne. Not the fairy tale ending to one of the most Hollywood moments in football, but the name Jimmy Glass will live on forever as the scorer of that goal, arguably the most important in any club's history.
Good morning, welcome to Sunday edition. 2 hours of debate on all the hot topics coming up, and there's plenty to get our teeth into. We're loving it as Europe are socking it to the USA in the Ryder Cup. They should surely finish the job today and well and truly shut the rowdy American fans up. The Red Roses are Women's World Rugby champions after an emphatic victory over Canada in the final at Twickenham, a 33rd win on the trot. However, for the Red Devils, it's more misery as Man United gets spanked at Brentford and Ruben Amorim sticks to the same predictable record. The man is not for changing. You can get in touch with the show. Text us on 81089, WhatsApp us or call us on 03717 223344. We're also live on YouTube and your smart TV. Just search talksport.com/watch for more details. This is Sunday Edition on talkSPORT. Morning, Henry.
Morning.
How's things? Busy week. You've been front and centre, haven't you, this week? Ballon d'Or, your big favourite event of the year, was announced on Monday.
It's been great, yeah. I mean, there's sort of confidentiality elements, so you can't really talk about it until France Football do their big interview.
Sorry,
L'Equipe yesterday.
You're a vote.
Oh, sorry, I've got the
Henry gets the one vote from Britain,
from England. No, Britain.
Oh.
I mean, the Scottish juror voted for McTominay as the best player in the year.
He's a very good player.
McTominay's fantastic. I mean, I had him 10th. He finished 18th overall. So, it's been interesting. But L'Equipe and France Football do this huge interview with the winner. Obviously, Ousmane Dembélé, who won by a landslide, 321 votes ahead of Lamine Yamal. Obviously, a lot of sort of Barcelona supporters were disappointed. But I think if you look at, Yamal's, he was fantastic in the Champions League. Some amazing moments, the semi-final. But I think if you talk to a lot of Barcelona fans, they'll say that Pedri had a better season. Rafinha had a better season.
And Liverpool fans will tell you Salah had a better season.
And Salah had a very good season. I had him fourth. I actually got the top 7 in order. Obviously Dembélé, Yamal, Vitinha, who I thought had a fantastic season for PSG, and then Mo Salah, Rafinha, Hakimi, Mbappe, and then I had Nuno Mendes, Harry Kane, who I was surprised finished outside the top 10. But
Did you have him in your top 10?
Yeah, I did. I had him 9th, as I say, and then McTominay. I just thought McTominay's season deserve reward. I mean, everyone says, it's about the best player in the world. It's not. And I saw Karen Brady's column. It's about the player who's had the best season. So when Modric won it in 2018, he'd had an unbelievable year. When Cannavaro, the first year I voted in 2006, what an unbelievable year he had, winning, obviously, 2006, the World Cup with Italy. And then Rodri, obviously, last year, he's not the best player in the world. You wouldn't say, I'm going to sit down and watch a collection of Rodri highlights. Mm-hmm. But that year that Rodri had was fantastic. So it's been a busy old week. And it was a busy old day yesterday.
It certainly was. There was so much going on. You could barely get Graham Potter's sacking on the back page.
I know. Happening. Well, when you've got on the front page of the Sunday Times, underneath a sort of blurb for Take That, they've been going for 35 years as a boy band. I'm sure you're a huge fan of theirs. But far more importantly, Red Roses, Romp Home, fantastic picture on the front page of the Sunday Times.
It is a very good pic, that.
David Rogers, Getty Images. We never credit photographers enough, and I know you try to as a sports editor. And they always say, Henry, you're just a caption writer, and you just look at these photographs here. A fantastic photograph on the front page of the Sunday Times, Ellie Kildum, who scored that terrific try. There was so much to watch yesterday with the golf, and obviously
even you were watching the golf.
I was watching the golf in between a lot of the the 3 football matches that were on the show.
Just quickly on the rugby, 82,000 there at Twickenham, which is fantastic attendance. But as a sport, women's rugby still has a bit of a way to go, in the sense that, and we've seen this a bit with men's rugby union as well, there's not enough professional teams, not enough full-time teams. Even Canada, we're reading in the week about, I can't remember the girl's
They needed
crowdfunding. Somebody was a full-time doctor. So it's still not there quite as a professional sport. So and England would want this as well, more teams who are competitive.
Given how competitive it was, the pace of it, and some of the tackles crunching in, you'd need a full-time doctor out on the pitch in your ranks. But your point is right. But you look, the last time England won the World Cup, 2014 in Paris, 20,000 watched it, 82,000 at Twickenham. Obviously, there's that home bias, and I get all that. But you could see, but also, fair play to the RFU and all those who are involved, the power of investment. They've invested in these players and been rewarded. But your point is completely valid, how that then spills over into the league. But look, the Lionesses, and you look at the WSL, how that is grown and is growing. So, I think it's fantastic. The most important thing is inspiring kids to take up sport.
What do you think it is about women's sport that's making us so good at various different top team sports?
Do you know what I can say? One thing that is one of the reasons why it is attractive, and parents want to take their kids to it, is that there's not much diving. There's not much swearing. We can get
there's a lot of diving in rugby.
A lot of diving, but there's no sort of simulation. There's no real sort of descent in terms of the behaviour towards the officials. I think there's a lot of parents will take their kids along and say, listen, that's how you behave. And some maybe are put off. Look, we love football and we love all that sort of drama and the adversarial element. But I think there is, one of the appeals of the Lionesses is that they're obviously good people as well as fantastic sportswomen.
Strangely, though, there's loads of abuse going on in the golf. So is that going to put off everybody from playing golf?
No, I think it probably adds to it in completely destroy my argument. But in terms of, the Sunday Times, again, there's a very good piece, just sort of taking in all the sort of, the abuse element that I mean, a lot of the feature writers, Ollie Brown in the Sunday tell. Ollie Holt, a lot of Ollies out there. Ollie Holt in the Mail talking about the whole drama around McIlroy. And this headline is interesting in the Sunday Times. Rick Broadbent's piece, their golf man out in New York. American fans' McIlroy abuse mars Europe charge. I would have a slight issue with the word mars, because actually I think in a way it enhances it. The fact that McIlroy has stood up to this, and Fleetwood as well, Fleetwood Mac and all the others, the way they've stood up to it. And that fantastic footage yesterday of McIlroy walking in front of the scoreboard, just pointing at it and pointing out to the sort of the American detractors. And look, the abuse is just over the top.
Yes, indeed it is. However, hopefully, big triumph for Europe today, and we can give them some polite abuse.
Absolutely. They'll be turning the scoreboard blue, and the American fans can turn the air blue.
Not much red for the USA. Red Roses win the World Cup.
Yep.
Red Devils.
Yep, red-faced.
Red-faced.
Yeah, there you go. You do think in tabloid headlines, don't you?
Well, so
Are you like that in your normal life? Do you sort of talk to the postman? Well delivered. First class. Stamp of approval. Anyway, look, you're. I mean, obviously, it's all over the back pages.
And we'll get into a forensic examination of United.
I mean, the Sunday Mirror, just very briefly, beyond belief, as in Brentford, and you've got to congratulate Brentford because they got their tactics right. They saw all the weaknesses in this Ruben Amorim setup, and they just went for them at pace.
Absolutely. And we've had a few texts already having a go at us. What will Shaun say about Sunderland today? Well done, Sunderland. Even Alan Shearer said, well done, Sunderland, last night.
Great for the region, you'd say.
Yeah, great. Anonymous. Morning, guys. Loving the show. Please don't talk about how bad Man United did yesterday. Please talk about how good Brentford were. And said, yeah, we know Brentford were good. They did do very well, but you can't get away from the fact that that's Gavin, the Everton fan. You can't get away from the fact Man United are...
How do you deal with that as a sports editor?
Man United's the biggest club in the country, one of the biggest in Europe, one of the biggest in the world. The big clubs are the big talking points.
So your final part of your piece will be, and it was completely well-deserved because Keith Andrews got his tactics right and he's a good coach.
Exactly. Robert Ward, can the misery surrounding Man United be parked and talk about the positives like Crystal Palace, Sunderland? Yeah, Palace, brilliant win yesterday over Liverpool.
Totally deserved.
Absolutely superb.
As honest lot, in fair play to him, said afterwards. Totally deserved.
He did. And the reason, Jim says, the reason women's sport is developing is nothing to do with behaviours. It is affordable. And long may it continue to be so. Good point, that.
There is. And look, something that we've both written about for the last 20 years. There's an issue of childhood obesity in this country. And any sport that encourages kids to take up a sport should be encouraged for their physical health and mental health.
This is Sunday Edition on talkSPORT, and I'm really sorry about this, but next up, we're talking Man United and Ruben Amorim's future.
What a dramatic day of news and events in the Premier League.
Jensen, he gets to the edge of the area. Jensen's going to go for goal and win the game with an absolute stunner. Manchester United have beaten again.
Another reason why Erling Haaland stayed on the pitch, Mickey Gray.
Yeah, he's got his second. Manchester City 5, Burnley 1, and it is Erling Haaland.
And it's the equaliser from the super sub, Federico Chiesa, with 3 minutes of normal time remaining.
A red card for Trevor Chalobah. So Chelsea down to 10 men.
It's Leeds 2, Bournemouth 2. It comes from a set piece.
The points are sealed. It's Chelsea 1, Brighton 3. Danny Welbeck.
That Chiesa equaliser, 3 minutes from time, may win it.
And it may not, because Eddie Nketiah has just blasted in from the corner of the 6-yard box. Selhurst Park erupts.
Sunderland, promoted via the playoffs in May, are sitting in the Champions League places in the Premier League.
It's the unpredictable Premier League, at least at the start of the season. Just over 90 seconds remain. Wolves fans, you're nearly there. In by Tell, hit by Paulinho! He's put it in the bottom corner! On a day of late goals in the Premier League, dramatically, Tottenham 1, Wolves 1.
Yeah, it was a dramatic day in the Premier League yesterday. Some fantastic results. And as we said, well done to Sunderland. Well done to Palace for beating Liverpool. Fantastic performance. When you think how many players at Palace have left and they've just revamped the squad. They've got Liverpool's number at the moment. And Brentford, superb effort to beat Manchester United. Although Ruben Amorim, Henry, seems to suggest that they just lumped it. Because he says we were playing like Brentford, hitting long balls when we should have been settling down. And I thought they played some pretty good stuff at times.
I think that Keith Andrew took one look at the way Manchester United play, this risky element of having a back three, back five, particularly the three centre halves. I mean, look, De Ligt is actually having a good season, but they haven't got a lot of pace at the back, and the naivety of Amorim to play a slightly higher line was always going to be exposed.
You don't like a high line?
I like a high line if you've got pace. That if you've got a Saliba who can, cover in behind, then it was risky with Van de Ven because of his hamstrings at Spurs under Ange. But yeah, I mean it's interesting looking at all the headlines. It's almost like everyone's sort of taken this step further in terms of they think it's near the end for Amorim. I mean, you look Sam Wallace, who's at the G-Tech, Brentford 3, Manchester United 1, and Sam is very, very balanced, and he's one of those go-to reads, this is in the Sunday Telegraph, go-to reads on Manchester United, and his headline, and it's reflected throughout the piece, is Amorim staring down barrel as United battered again. And it's strong stuff from Sam. Just quickly, his intro. If this is not the end for Ruben Amorim, then you have to wonder how much worse it must get for the Manchester United manager before the club decides enough. And that is pretty damning. And he's right, because you look at Manchester United and you say, how do you risk playing a defensive line like that against pace? How can you have so many tall players, good headers of the ball, Maguire, Sesko, De Ligt, and not prepare for the set pieces and throw-ins that are going to come your way from Keith Andrews, former set-piece coach, but obviously he's got many more elements to his managerial ability than that. How can you play Bruno, who's a very good number 10, out of position? Look,
this was the problem we knew would happen, and he didn't seem to acknowledge it at the start.
How do you play Luke Shaw, who is a good left-back? He's ageing, but he's a good left-back. How can you play him as a left-sided centre-back, particularly when you've got Patrick Dogu, who's not necessarily the best positionally, and then finish a game with, I think Mbeumo was playing out wide almost as a wing-back. So, and also, I mean, all the pictures tell a story, which is of Ruben Amorim staring at the ground. I mean, again, the Sunday Telegraph, the picture is just of him with his hands over his ears, and it's like he's just wanting to be anywhere but in the Manchester United dugout. What we expect from Manchester United managers, whatever their tactical limitations, is defiance, is body language, strong body language, and they're not getting that from him. You then move on to who replaces him if they do decide to make that, and whether they wait until after, is it the big Liverpool game they've got coming up, whether you make a decision after that if they get humiliated at Anfield. But you think of all those Manchester United fans who are there, who are supporting. They've got amazing away support, amazing home support as well. But they're almost becoming mute with frustration at what they are seeing.
Well, after the game, Amorim was quite predictably asked about his future.
It's always the same. We have to be really strong to get back again with our fans. We need to win games, so it's always the same story. We try to create a momentum. We get a big punch and we go again. So that's what we are going to do this week.
Well, he's going to go again and again and again.
The definition of madness is doing the same thing again and again and taking a punch and not learning from it and being stubborn. I mean, look, he's been able to bring in a new attack. And that is they're good players. I mean, Cunha's a good player, and Mbeumo, who's played well this season, is a good player. But you could reconfigure it. If you had Bruno Fernandes, I'm just a civilian in all this, but just talking to Manchester United fans, they all say, play Bruno in his best position as a 10, play Cunha one side of him, Mbeumo the other side, and Šeško. Give Šeško some service. Play a 4-2-3-1. Casemiro's aging, the legs aren't what they were. Kobbie Mainoo, the manager, seems to have an issue with him. I don't know whether that's true or not, but Kobbie Mainoo started a European Championship final for England. Ugarte should be good, but he never seems to deliver in that position. But two of those three you could have shielding a back four.
It wasn't on that clip that we just had, but he did say in some other interviews that he doesn't think about his future. He never worries about his future, and he goes, and he doesn't worry about his job, just worries about getting on with the job in hand, if you like, as he's doing it. I don't believe he doesn't worry about his future. I just think that's nonsense.
Because there's a pride in it. Look, he doesn't need to worry about his future and his family's future and his grandchildren's future and his great-grandchildren's future, because he'll have a payoff that sets him up, his family up for 4 or 5 generations. But he should worry about it in terms of his pride, his professional pride. I mean, these are elite-level managers who are competitive individuals. He was as a player, and he just looks inhibited by it. Now, I understand it's the culture of the place, and we can go back to the Glazers and their takeover in 2005 and the lack of leadership and responsibility. I absolutely get all that behind the scenes and the cultural problems that Manchester United have. But you go in there with an element of defiance. And I just think it's, the best managers have a plan B. Pep's been criticised this season for sort of mixing up Manchester City's play. I think that's a sign of a good manager. He just, he works to the strengths of his players. Ferguson would tweak his teams in Europe. All the best managers have tweaked their teams. He doesn't seem to be able to do it, and he is sticking to this 3-4-2-1 system, which is against Manchester United's tradition of wingers, and it just doesn't seem to work. The other thing he's got, and I know I'm coming off a long run up on this, is that some of the players who've left Manchester United and gone elsewhere, McTominay, Rashford to an extent, although he needs to sort of do it more consistently at Barcelona, but we've seen how good he is there. Anthony at Real Betis, particularly second half against Forest. So, yeah, I mean, that is embarrassing that players have been liberated from his system or from Manchester United and are doing well elsewhere.
It is quite ironic that wingers are back this season and people are beating the fullback. We saw Jeremy Doku, for instance, for City, really skinning the fullbacks, and I'm delighted to see it. Get down the byline, get your cross in, and use a big man like Šeško, if you like, to get on the end of crosses. So he's almost, I hesitate to say it, he's out of date now with the fact we've gone back to the future.
Yeah, I mean, you could point to Oliver Glasner making that system work, but he's got wing backs, Munoz and Mitchell. Mitchell's been outstanding this season, well, for a while, and it works. But it's not so. It's about finding the right players for that system. But I do agree with you. I mean, wingers, and actually seeing a winger go outside his fullback rather than inverting inside.
Okay, then back him or sack him. Come on,
2 more games.
2 more games. That's what you got, Ruben. 2 more games. This is what?
But then who? Sorry, it's all very well saying,
I know.
In or
well,
whoever.
If you're in charge, you're giving him 2 more games.
Yeah.
And think about it in the meantime.
Yeah. International break.
Indeed. Always a dodgy time for a manager. This is Sunday edition on talkSPORT with Shaun, Custis and Henry Winter. We're with you until 11 o'clock this morning. Don't forget, we're live on YouTube and your smart TV. So to have a look at that, just search talksport.com/watch for more details. Following us, it's the warm-up with Max Rushton and Barry Glendenning. Coming up next, Preston North End director Peter Ridsdale joins us. But before that, it's the news headlines with Matt Hutchinson. Morning, this is Sunday Edition with myself, Shaun, Custis and Henry Winter. We're with you to 11 o'clock. Plenty more to come. We'll be talking all about the Ryder Cup and how we're smashing the Americans to pieces and they don't like it. No, they don't. We'll also have a great feature on our favourite stories of sendings off in our Best of the Best feature. But first, we're turning to this. There's been proposal to change the Championship playoff system, and it's been put forward by Peter Ridsdale, who's director at Preston and former Supremo at Leeds United. Peter joins us now. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Shaun.
Morning, Peter.
Morning, Henry.
Peter, we're always talking about the game being fiddled with and why do we need to do this, that and the other. Can't we just leave it as it is? But you think there's a method in this one. I know they do it in the National League, extend the playoffs. Can you explain your proposal and why you think it's necessary?
Yes, of course. I mean, first of all, people are giving me credit for having thought about it in the first place. It was actually discussed at the EFL board, and I chair the Championship meetings, and therefore I was the person who put it forward to the Championship clubs, and certainly I'm in favour of it. The issues we've got are as follows. First of all, as you know, we can't get anywhere on redistribution from the Premier League. The disparity between 200 million if you get promoted and 11 million a season if you're in the Championship is causing even more problem year in, year out, forcing clubs to spend money that perhaps they haven't got to try and get into the playoffs. You've then got TV rights, which are coming up shortly, and the games that really sell for the media companies are the teams trying to get into the playoffs, and then, of course, the playoffs. And then, of course, the relegation places both from the Premier League and from the Championship into League One. And if you look at last season, I mean, the competitiveness in the Championship, there was something like 8 points difference between 12th team and relegation, and something like 10 points, 10 points, I think it was, between the mid-table and the playoff places. So if we can get every one of our games with something to play for right up to the last game, it will help selling our media rights, it will help crowds, it will help income, and it will help us compete more easily.
So how many are you proposing then? So how many automatically promoted, then how many in the playoffs, and how would those playoffs work?
Yeah, so what we're proposing is 2 still go up automatically, that we have a new round, which is the 5th team plays at home to the 8th team in a one-off game, and the 6th team plays at home to the 7th team in a one-off game. And then the winners from those go back into the semi-finals, just like now, with the 3rd and 4th teams playing a 2-leg semi-final to get into the final. So essentially, the teams who come 7th and 8th have one new opportunity to get, obviously, into the playoffs and therefore potentially promoted into the Premier League. The other thing that makes me smile, the Premier League clubs have said, do we really want the 8th team coming up? Well, first of all, there are certainly no guarantees. Just look at the National League of the 8th team going up. But the other thing is, every meeting I've been in with the Premier League trying to talk about redistribution, the biggest fear factor defending the parachute payments from the Premier League clubs is that they get relegated to the Championship. So why should they worry if a team that's 7th or 8th suddenly manages to get through the playoffs and get into the Premier League? You'd have thought they'd have been all in favour of that.
Yeah. Can I just clarify? You're not applying this to League One and League Two?
The reason why I've stressed that I'm not the author of it is it was raised as an EFL board, and I'm the chair of the Championship group as one of the 3 elected representatives. In recent discussions, Leagues 1 and 2 have said, well, if you're talking about this, why don't we do the same? And we've said clearly, as divisional reps, they can discuss it with their clubs and put those proposals forward. And it would seem to me that if we're proposing it in the Championship with the interface of the Premier League, it would be a nonsense for us to suggest that Leagues 1 and 2 couldn't do the same thing.
Peter, isn't there a broader issue here that there is an issue with the parachute payments? Surely if those are all included in a proper deal that the Premier League offers the EFL under this long-delayed, supposedly called a new deal, why isn't that being executed? Because this is all about money, isn't it? And surely if we had better redistribution from the resources of the Premier League down through the EFL, we wouldn't necessarily need to be doing things like this.
Well, we can take all opportunities, Henry, to discuss, if there's redistribution, whether this down to 8 works or whatever. You're quite right that if we had a sensible distribution model from the Premier League through the Championship down into Leagues 1 and 2, this may be less compelling, because obviously I'm talking now about trying to maximise media rights within the EFL. But you tell me how we get any sensible conversation on redistribution. I heard a few weeks ago, obviously Karen was on talking about being in meetings, which I was present at, on redistribution, and they offered, if they offered, and I don't believe there was an offer put forward, half of what was offered 2 or 3 years ago. The Premier League is showing no urgency or interest whatsoever in any sensible redistribution. And until that happens, we have to look at other options.
But look, they're intelligent people within the Premier League executive and obviously on the boards there. Surely they can't be naive enough to go down that path when there's a regulator coming over the horizon.
Well, the next one is to say, what's the regulator going to do? Because, look, I suggested, and again, it was sort of dismissed out of hand, and I'm saying it not necessarily whether it's the Premier League and the Football League running their own competitions, but I am old enough to remember when the Premier League was formed, and I was at Leeds United at the time. If you had all 92 clubs in one system and you decided how to distribute the money coming in at the top end of the game, you wouldn't distribute it like you do now. Yes, of course, the top 20 would get more than those below, but what you wouldn't have is the 20th team getting essentially 100 million in that season and then a further 100 million over 2 seasons, and the next team down getting 11. You just wouldn't do it. But nobody seems to want to have that conversation. And until somebody solves that, we have to look at other options.
What will happen if the Premier League propose a PL2?
Well, that again hasn't been on the table for years. And of course, I've got to be very careful because I'm an EFL director, albeit representing the Championship, and would have to have a look at what the implications were on Leagues 1 and 2, because I'm a very stout advocate for the pyramid system. You just look, there's been, 52 clubs been in the Premier League since it was formed. And I think English football is so successful because the success of the pyramid system. But we've got a situation where the Premier League, year in, year out, because of their success, they've done a great job at moving further and further away from those below them and the Championship down. And, you talk about clubs who are in financial difficulties. And we've got a few at the moment. One high profile was Sheffield Wednesday. Part of the problem there is you've got supporters, you've got owners who are desperate to get to the holy grail of getting the Premier League riches, and therefore they're overspending. If you had a sensible distribution system, it would hopefully negate some of that.
Peter, can you explain? You still are getting money from the Premier League at the moment, because I keep hearing, that this is on hold, they're blocking the distribution, but there is still money trickling down at the moment. It's just not what you want. Is that correct?
Well, of course. So every team in the Championship gets the same amount of money in central distributions. That's around £11 million, of which just short of 50% of that comes from the Premier League, and the balance comes from the EFL's own media deal. So you're right, we're getting £5-ish million, 5.3 million or something from the Premier League, but the bottom team gets £100 million and then a further 100 million over 2 seasons. Well, how can you compare? How can you compete? For the last 4 seasons, 2 of the 3 promotion spots in every one of the last 4 seasons have been clubs with parachute payments.
You must be encouraged by the fact that the promoted clubs are actually doing pretty well. So why necessarily change this system? And I mean, the last day of the Championship is, correct me if I'm wrong, there are often very few dead rubbers. There's often something to play for with the system as is.
Well, I think last season, as I've already said, Henry, you've got a situation where with 6 or 7 games to go, you're right, every team potentially could have got sucked into the relegation situation, and a lot of teams could have got into the playoffs. But what we're actually saying is, for selling media rights going forward, what we want to see is more games with more on them for as long as possible in the season, where supporters want to pay and come and watch, the media team companies want to televise them. And then, of course, the playoffs would all get further media income as well, because there'll be additional games. And it's one of the ways where we can try and give our clubs in the Championship a little more firepower in terms of money to try and compete. Because, yes, you're right in saying this year we've got the 3 promoted teams doing better than usual. I mean, they're normally the ones who are all, everybody says they're going to get relegated. Sunderland have had an outstanding start. But in the last few seasons, I think I'm right in saying, in the main, the 3 promoted clubs, at least 2 of the 3 have come straight back down again.
More from Peter coming up here on Sunday edition on talkSPORT. He'll be talking about owners. Do they get an unfair rap? And what's it like to sack a manager? Sunday edition on talkSPORT with Shaun, Custis and Henry Winter, and we have Peter Ridsdale with us, Chief Executive, Preston North End, elected board member of the EFL, and we want to move the discussion on now to a bit of chat about owners, and essentially, why do you all do it, Peter? You've been in the game a long time. You've had your good times, you've had your bad times, you've had your times where you've been popular, times where you've been unpopular, let's be honest, and yet you come back for more. You're still there, you're at Preston now. What's the attraction? You never see, because in the end, you never really get any thanks, do you?
Well, I'm not the owner, and the owner at Preston North End's put in between 13 and 15
but you still run it,
£15
helping run the club.
No. Sorry, I understand, Sean. And what I'm really saying is, of course, I come back for more because, first of all, I love football. I've been doing it for 38 years. It's a very privileged position to be involved in football. Sometimes when I invite supporters in and show them, what we do on a daily basis and take them round, they're shocked at some of the things you have to deal with. But the highs and lows are like nothing else. I mean, I have actually had real jobs in the past, but there's nothing like football. And, I live, eat and breathe it. What I don't quite know, and this is one of the challenges that the regulator is going to have, is why the next generation of owners are going to come along. Because, we've criticised those who've got into financial difficulty. You've had Derby County, you've had Bolton Wanderers, you've had Sheffield Wednesday. But in each of those cases, owners have put in massive six-figure sums to try and keep their clubs going. But as I suggested earlier, you've got this problem where, everybody's trying to get into the Premier League. The Premier League, when it was formed, the differential between the top 22 clubs in those days and the rest was not a lot. But today it's massive. And, of course, if you do get there for a year, it sort of keeps you going for quite a long time because you've got £200 million, even if you come back down again.
But you're on the other side of the fence now, being in the EFL. But when Leeds United were in the Premier League and the Premier League was formed, it was happy days, wasn't it?
It was, but let me remind you, when I was there were no parachute payments. And in fact, one of the reasons Leeds, after I left, and I'll stress that, got into financial difficulties, is that there weren't any parachute payments and we had no relegation clauses in the contracts of some of the top players at Leeds. Yes, I was there at a time when we enjoyed it. But what I do recognise, because I do love football, I've had experience in all four divisions, is that it's critical to me that it's a healthy pyramid. And a healthy pyramid isn't where you've got £11 million as the 21st club and 200 million as the 20th club. And to attract new owners, they have to see there's an opportunity, not just to waste hundreds of millions of pounds. Sheffield Wednesday are sitting there. They haven't got a queue outside the door to take over from Chancery. So it's all very well the supporters criticising, which I understand, and it's a massive football club. But where's the next owner coming from? Our ownership group took over with Trevor Hemmings, who sadly died 4 years ago. His family trust now own it. But they've made it clear to our supporter base that if anybody wants to knock on the door, the keys are here. We've got them waiting for them. But when they see that they're going to have to put in, just to survive in the Championship, probably 13 to 15 million pounds a year, not to get promoted, just to survive, there aren't many people willing to do so. So we have to fix the finances of the game, and that's a better distribution system.
But Peter, you look at Preston, I mean, great history, but not been in the top tier since 1961. You've got a ground, you've got a supporter base, you've got your goalkeeper Everson made an unbelievable save yesterday. You've got from Mehmeti. Sorry to bring it back to the football, but that was just one of the saves of the season. But you've also, we talk about interest, but John Ledecky. Is he interested? He's co-owner of the New York Islanders, probably better known for many people, certainly in the sporting world, because he's the uncle of Katie Ledecky, if I pronounced it right, who's the most decorated swimmer in Olympic history, female swimmer. So there is interest, and is he interested? Is he a possibility for you?
Well, clearly you've raised a name that I didn't realise you knew of, and if you do, I'd like you to ring him and ask him, because he was my guest at the Middlesbrough game a couple of weeks ago. He was my guest in part because I hoped he may well have an interest. I haven't heard from him since, but actually he sent me a very good message after we beat Derby County last week, wishing us well. But we've had no expressions of interest from him directly, other than he has to come and see a game.
But sorry, he came to see a game. Surely, if he came to see a game, obviously we all want to watch Preston in the EFL. But
maybe he came to watch Middlesbrough, Henry.
He came to watch Middlesbrough.
No, I'm joking. Look, John asked to come to our game. He is somebody that it's the first time I'd met him. He has to come. I haven't had any conversation with him since from a financial perspective, other than a couple of good luck messages from him. But were he to be interested, we would be very interested in talking to him. The point I'm making, not just about Preston, but we are clearly similar to a lot of clubs, is if the next owner wants to come and take us on, it's not difficult. Here we are, the keys are here. However, it's a big financial drain on the current system within the English pyramid where, you know, you've got to put a lot of money in just to stand still. We've got the 21st wage bill in the division. This is our 11th consecutive season in the Championship, and it's costing between 13 and 15 million pounds just to survive. We're not spending crazy money on players' wages. Our non-football overheads are one of the lowest in the division. It's a tough act out there, and there isn't a massive queue of new owners.
Directors to make sure you either stay in the division or get promoted. On a wider issue, Peter, we've seen the sacking of Graham Potter Saturday morning, which caught us a bit by surprise. We're not saying he wasn't under pressure, but Saturday morning, I remember you sacking David O'Leary on the eve of, I think, a World Cup final when you're at Leeds. What goes through an owner's or chief executive's or director's minds when it comes to sacking managers and replace them? Is it panic? Is it properly worked out tactics on your part? What goes through your heads?
Well, I think in every situation it's very different. I mean, the starting point is, I've always said, I think the hardest job in football is to pick the right manager. And I also think to pick the right manager is probably the biggest single decision you have to get right versus anything else you do. You know, just look at Crystal Palace's performances over recent months, where they've clearly got a great decision with the manager they've currently got. So first of all, pick the right manager. That's tough. Secondly, in most of the jobs when you're interviewing people, what you try and do is say, how will they fit into your culture? And I think too often what people do is look at what they've done where they are. And, you know, if you look at Manchester United, you know, Amorim had a great track record in Portugal, but, you know, does that necessarily mean he'll fit into the Premier League? And that's not my job to decide. But I don't think we use the same business logic when we're looking at hiring, firing managers as you would in a normal business. And the fit is critical. I also think you know when it's going wrong, and sometimes you hang on too long. You've also got the pressure from your supporters who are desperate for you to succeed. Every single supporter wants you to win football matches. And three teams, whether we like it or not, are going to go down every year. So the owners and the managers are going to come under pressure. So the dynamics are different to any other business. I don't suppose the customers of Marks and Spencer's ring Archie Norman if they don't like a shirt or a dress. You know, they just go somewhere else. But in football, you stay with your club, and therefore you express your dissatisfaction very open and clearly. That pressure then gets to the owners and the directors, and that gets to the managers. And then you decide what you have to do. I've tried very hard to give managers time wherever I've been. David had been with us 4 years at Leeds, and there were other reasons, as I alluded to in a recent article in a paper, not just footballing as to why we made a change then. At Cardiff, I had Dave Jones for the whole period I was the chairman, which was 5 years, and he was still there when I left. And I think I saw a table the other day saying we've had the second lowest number of managers since 2000 of any club in the Championship. So we try and give our managers time, and you know, time is difficult to give if you've got pressures from your supporter base because they want success. But time, I think, is crucial. But the starting point is get the right person.
Was it difficult with David? Because he did get you to the semi-finals of the Champions League.
Henry, as I've just said, I think there were non-footballing reasons behind that. And therefore, yes, it was very difficult. But it was nothing to do with performance on the field. We'd never been outside the top five of the Premier League. And you could argue that decision was the start of it going wrong. But sometimes you just have to do what you believe to be the right thing, given the information you have, and I believe we did.
So, sorry, it was the wrong decision if, as you say, it went wrong, even more wrong after that.
I didn't say. What I actually said was I thought I took the right decision given the information I had. From a footballing point of view, would we have changed finishing fifth? No. But I've already said that there were situations that the board decided, of which I was the chair, that it was right to make a change given other factors.
Meanwhile, Peter, over at Preston, you're doing pretty well at the start of this season, but you'll have to be in the top six, not the top eight at the moment. What do you think your chances are of going up?
Well, the book is almost without exception, had us in the bottom 3 before we kicked a ball. And therefore, to the degree we stay in the Championship, I think that's beating the odds. We've had a good start. Paul Heckingbottom is very impressive as a manager. He's doing a great job. We've supported him as best we could in the transfer market, brought 12 players in, and we've lost 1 game at Portsmouth, which probably shouldn't. Yesterday, we probably should have lost to Bristol City in the sense that, as Henry said, Danny Leveson pulled out an unbelievable save in the last minute. But we've played Ipswich, we've played Leicester, we've played Middlesbrough, we've played Bristol City, all of whom are up there, and haven't lost to any of those teams. So I'd like to think as a squad that we can compete to try and get into the playoffs this year, but it's a tough ask. It's a very competitive division.
Peter Ridsdale, best of luck with that. Thank you very much for your time. Fascinating insights there, Henry.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yes. Oh, fascinating. I mean, he always is, Peter, and he understands the importance of the pyramid. And we need to fight that. And I just hope at some point that, the Premier League, and, there are good people who work in the Premier League who care about the sort of the broader elements of football. And they have to appreciate how important the EFL is for developing managers, for developing players. We could celebrate Harry Kane in 2 hours today, but he had to go off on loan into the EFL and develop there. The EFL clubs, the 72, are so important for the 20 at the top, and they have to work together.
Hear, hear. Next up, we're discussing a potential Spurs takeover and West Ham's sacking of Graham Potter, who's been replaced by Nuno.
What do you get when some of the most individual sports stars club together? Well, a melting pot of history, tension, rivalry, friendship and elite stories. Here are some of the best off-camera anecdotes from the Ryder Cup. Number 1, Tigers loo roll. The protagonist, Lee Westwood's former caddy, Billy Foster, sat in a toilet cubicle at the Belfry. As he went to relieve his first morning nerves, Foster noticed only one of the two cubicles had loo roll, and while he was seated, in came a tiger into the empty cubicle, and he realised his mistake all too late. So Foster took some paper, reached under the cubicle with a rescue offering, and as Tiger went to take it, Foster uttered the words, "Europe, 1-up." As it happened, Europe did go on to win. Fast forward 10 years to the miraculous Medina, when, after a gruelling Saturday, Rory McIlroy overslept on the Sunday and was in danger of missing his tee time. Thankfully for him, the person booking player transport was Erica Stoll. She sorted him a police escort to the course. 3 years later, McIlroy proposed in Paris. The next story is told by Scottish legend Sam Torrance about the great Seve, who apparently despised the Americans mainly because of a diminutive US reporter who kept calling him Steve.
Hey, my name is Severiano for Seve. It's no Steve, it's no Steve. Next day, Steve.
Torrance also tells of how Seve regularly gave coaching clinics to his European teammates, but a week later at the Italian Open, when the same players asked for advice, Seve would tell them to and see you next year. Having started with a Billy Foster story, let's finish with one from the 12th tee at Oakland Hills in 2004. It was Jimenez and Garcia against Westwood and Clark in a practice round, and as they finished, Foster decided to jump in the buggy and speed away with all their clubs, only to lose control entirely and tumble onto the course and see it careering towards the spectators. Thankfully, the Red Sea parted and the buggy smashed into a tree, with viewers and clubs still intact.
Yeah, this is Sunday edition. We'll be talking Ryder Cup in quarter of an hour, but before we get to that, more football stuff is on the stocks. And yesterday morning, West Ham sacked Graham Potter and appointed Nuno, and earlier in the week there was a new bid, or potential bid, for Spurs. Daniel Levy has gone. There's a lot of interest in taking over at Spurs. It's a very marketable sort of club. It's got a nice fancy new stadium, and the man who broke the latest news of the takeover bid is Martin Lipton, the Sun's top sports reporter, who joins us now. Morning, Martin.
Glad that's my new title, Shaun.
Top sports report. Top sports reporter. Yes, indeed it is, Martin. Now then, we'll talk a little bit about West Ham later on, but start with Spurs. What's going on? Is there any chance they'll get sold? Because they're very stoic about the fact they won't be. And where are we with this bid?
So my understanding is that a formal bid will go in over the next few days.
From
Brooklyn Eric, which is a fantastic name. He's a former DJ from Ohio who then worked bizarrely for NASA, but went into, and if you explain blockchain to me, you know more than I do, and NFTs and all these strange things which make no sense whatsoever to me. I've got to be brutally honest, but apparently he's got a lot of money, and he's got 12 backers from the US sports industry, owners of various sports, he claims. Look, I'm going to be honest. Initially, I thought it was a great story, but I wasn't necessarily convinced entirely that it was going to go anywhere. And then, of course, Spurs sent put out a statement confirming that the approach has been made. I think that's the first sign that it's significant. He insists he's been in long-term conversations with Tottenham, with Daniel Levy before he went, with Katie Reid, who's their chief legal officer as well, in that period. And subsequently, he's posted videos of himself being sent on a tour of the ground and the training ground. He seems to be absolutely convinced this can happen. He set a timetable of completing a deal potentially by the beginning of December. It's one thing for Tottenham and ENIC to say they're not for sale, and you get that. But even if you are for sale, you don't say you're for sale, do you? You know, you're trying to negotiate a price. And if a hard bid does go on the table, that changes the dynamic of any situation. Then it's real money. This is 3.3 billion up front. Now Forbes values Spurs at 2.6 billion plus 1.2 billion over the future windows, not necessarily any individual window, of 1.2 billion to spend on players and wages and agents' fees. That's a significant sum. And unlike some other clubs, Spurs have huge financial leeway under the PSR rules and even UEFA squad cost ratio rules, because they make 600 or rake in 600 million pounds a year through the turnstile and the commercial deals and broadcast, etc. I mean, only Man United get more through the gate per match than Tottenham, over 5 million, nearly 6 million pounds every home game.
Martin, Forbes genuinely saying that Spurs are worth 2.5 billion. They must be worth more than that, because the stadium's worth more than $1 billion. As you say, they match day revenue. They've got the London waiting. They've got an amazing training ground. They've got a good squad. They've got an elite manager now.
That's the number they put on it just a few months ago. So yes, that is what they value the club. I think that they're, as a business magazine, they take a different view of the valuation of sports franchises, as the Americans would say, than perhaps we would, because of the emotional attachment we have for clubs. Chelsea, the actual price to buy Chelsea from Abramovich was 2.5 billion. The other 1.75 from Bowley and Co. was to go into the budget. So 2.6 million for Spurs in that circumstance doesn't seem too far off the actual valuation. So therefore, if Eric is putting 3.3 on the table, that's 30% nearly above the nominal value price.
Yeah, I can understand why the Lewis kids, who seem very committed from a sporting and financial perspective, wouldn't want to sell. But where do you think Daniel Levy is in all this? Because obviously he's got, 25%?
Well, there's lots of suggestions that he may have been looking to buy back the club, effectively take over himself. I don't know whether that's anything to do with Eric. I don't believe so. There's all rumours of Amanda Staveley coming back in with PCP, her company or investment vehicle. People think Spurs are for sale. In my opinion, Spurs have always been for sale. The question was the price. You know, I know for a fact that in 2008, they had an offer on the table from a Middle East businessman, but he offered somewhere in the region of 250 million, and they wanted 400 million in 2008. Now, as we know, football values have exponentially grown as a result of the television deal. You know, Spurs had a terrible season last year, but they still raked in over 125 million from the Premier League alone. Now, if they have a decent season this year, that'll be near 160 million, plus they're guaranteed 50 million already from the Champions League without winning another game. It shows you where the value of clubs has risen to.
Now then, on another topic, Graham Potter was sacked by West Ham yesterday morning. Nuno Espirito Santo replaced him in the dugout for Everton versus West Ham, which is tomorrow night. That'll be live on talkSPORT. Just a few weeks ago, West Ham Vice Chair Baroness Karen Brady joined us on this show and gave Potter her full backing.
Graham is a forward-thinking manager. He's sort of calm under pressure. He's very detailed in his approach. He's a great manager of players. He builds a special relationship with players and they understand where he's coming from. And he has a modern mindset. And all of those things mean that it does take some time to put a team together, to get the team playing the way that you want. I mean, West Ham is not a club that panics about its managers. We tend to support people, stick with them and see it through. I really hope he does well. He's a pleasure to work with. He's incredibly professional. And I know the players respect him.
How quickly things change. Martin, you've been watching this situation as well. Nuno was boss of, let's be honest, your club Spurs and was sacked there when many people thought he didn't deserve to be sacked. So what do you make of the shenanigans going on?
Well, I do think it's quite ironic that Nuno, being a disciple of Jose, has done now what Jose has just done. So Jose lost his job against Benfica and then takes over Benfica. Nuno lost his job by losing at home to West Ham and then takes over West Ham a few weeks later. Look, he was never a good fit for Spurs because of the way the club want to play. He's an excellent fit for the situation that West Ham are in. They need some stability. They need to sort it out at the back. They need some defensive organisation. Of course, what we know with West Ham, like it or not, is it's rinse and repeat. So they go for, they try to get an attacking manager in. It doesn't work. They get in a defensive, more organised manager, whether it be Allardyce or Moyes, and everyone's happy for a while. And then they get bored because they're playing too defensive football. So they sack him and bring in a more attacking manager. And a year later, they need another more defensive manager because they're in trouble. And here we go on and on again. Nuno will stabilise them. I'm sure get them out of trouble. But the reason they've gone for him is because they are, forget what she just said there in that interview, Karen, it's a panic move. The real worry is for West Ham that at least 2 of the 3 promoted clubs are stronger than they thought they were going to be. They've got points on the board. Leeds and Sunderland are doing really well. And suddenly it looks as though it could be 2 plus probably Burnley who go down. Well, that's an issue because West Ham are going to be at the moment one of those 2. So, in those circumstances, you can understand why let's just sort it out at the back is the obvious position for them to take.
But you move on a manager, but the protests from the supporters will continue because they have issues with the board, whether it's the configuration of the stadium, whether it's ticket prices, whether it's the attack on concessions, and also the timing of the Potter sort of exit in terms of being allowed to do the press conference on Friday, having to sort of deal with questions about sort of face swapping and having prepared the team all week. And then suddenly he gets eased out. I mean, it's not a very classy way to run a club, is it?
It doesn't look great, let's be honest. And I feel really sorry for Graham. I really like Graham Potter. I think he's a really good bloke. I think he's a great coach. He's at his best improving players. There are some dressing rooms who don't want to be improved, shall we say, who think that they know better. He didn't have that at Brighton. He didn't have that at Swansea. He didn't have that when he was away in Sweden. But it looks as though he had it when he was at Chelsea. And you have to say it looks as though he's had it again at West Ham. At the same point, since his opening home game against Fulham in January, he's won 1 in 11 at home. That's not enough. He's lost most of them. They haven't been able to put any run of games together. The reality is that the protests will stop if the team wins, or at least they'll go into relative neutrality. The protests are a symptom of the fact that everyone's hacked off at the performances and the results. It will bubble away underneath because there are certain people like Spurs fans who wanted rid of Levy and Enoch and other clubs as well, who will always want a change of ownership. That's just what happens. That they thought when the Czech fella came in, this would be the beginning of the end of Sullivan, Brady, etc. That won't change. The unhappy will always be unhappy, but they aren't the loud voice if the team is winning. When the team is losing, people jump on board, as we saw with the protest last week. And it's, as ever the case, if the chants say sack the manager, there's a vote of confidence. If the chants are sack the board, the manager goes. Last week, the chants were sack the board.
Martin Lipton, to give you a correct title, Deputy Chief Sports Correspondent of The Sun. Thank you very much. Next up, Ryder Cup final day, and Team Europe are having a stormer. We're switching the focus to the final day of the Ryder Cup here on Sunday edition. Bit of Fleetwood Mac for you there to celebrate the great partnership between Tommy Fleetwood and Rory McIlroy. Europe are leading 11.5 to 4.5. Surely we're going to crush those Americans into the dirt. There was plenty of trouble as well between the American crowd and the European golfers, particularly Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy. And former Ryder Cup legend Colin Montgomery told talkSPORT he was impressed how McIlroy dealt with the heckling.
Very well. Look at his scores. And he's got a great partner in Fleetwood when they play together, so that was a great, the Fleetwood Mac thing's superb. Yes, he's the biggest threat. He's the, so-called our best player. So therefore the biggest threat. As I became in the late 90s, the biggest threat. And you tend to get it. You tend to get it more than not by then. But I think he's handled it very well.
Sophie Walker, pro golfer and broadcaster, joins us now to discuss it all. Morning, Sophie.
Good morning.
Morning, Sophie.
How much are you enjoying this, Sophie? And does the angst with the crowd just add a little bit extra? Or are we disgusted and think this should never happen again?
Oh, we never got here in our wildest dreams. I thought Friday was good. Saturday was unbelievable. The best performance we've seen from a European team on a Saturday. And it's a bit like football, isn't it? You go there as a fan, you're there to cheer your team on. But if they're playing bad and stinking the house out, well, what else can we do? We'll pick on somebody else. And I think that's why the Europeans are getting the grief, because the American fans are mad. Their team has not turned up. They've only got one song. We'll turn on the Europeans. We'll see if we can help our boys, get some points. And it has just not happened. I think Colin Montgomery is exactly right there. How well that they've coped. I think Luke Donald has obviously discussed with them over the last couple of years. I remember when we won back in Italy, and Rory was already talking about Bethpage. I spoke to his security guard, and they were already planning for Bethpage straight after that Ryder Cup. So this has been planned for a long time, and they're handling it well. But that's because there's loads of blue on the board as well.
There's some of this liveliness among the American fans. I do accept that we've had it before, and we've had various incidents, but this seemed to get was particularly lively yesterday. Is some of that to do with live golf, do you think, and the fact that the crowd don't have to behave particularly there, and we're going to have to get used to the fact not thousands of people just can't shut up nowadays in a tournament?
I don't think it's got to do with live golf. When the venue was announced in New York, New York fans are loud and outspoken, so there was a preparation for that. The Ryder Cup can get louder compared to a normal tournament because it's us against them team environments. And also with mobile phones now, people want to go viral. They want to shout something out, get it on record, and then it hits the internet. So I think it's more to do with that.
Sophie, you made a very interesting video in 2020 when you went round Rory's golf club, Hollywood. I think it's in County Down. What was it that because you were obviously sort of talking to people there who sort of knew him growing up. What was it? What shaped him into this amazing competitor as well as obviously an elite golfer?
Well, I think looking at him and quite a lot of the Ryder Cup team from Europe, they're humble upbringings, normal lad that went to the golf course, joined the junior section like everybody else did, lived there. His parents would just give him a couple of quid to get his bowl of chips and a pint of Coke and pick you up in 8 hours. And the friendships that he made there. So his friend was a man that looked after the gym. His other mate worked in the pro shop. His dad, was a member there. Just how normal everything was, but then how special they knew Rory was. So from a very, very young age, he had some talent, he had some speed, he hit it a long way. but just how he just turned up and was just the same as everybody else. And I think that's what he does really well in the European team. He doesn't come in as Rory McIlroy. He comes in as Rory, just 1 of 12.
And also, of course, we've got a number of players who have had a confidence boost this season. Rory by winning the Masters. Tommy Fleetwood wins the end-of-season event there as well. Justin Rose very close to winning a major too. And they're all fully believing that they can give the Americans a lesson, and the upshot is that people like DeChambeau just lose their rag.
Yeah, I mean, look, DeChambeau's won 1 point. Scottie Scheffler, the world number 1, has won 0 points. If you are going to win a Ryder Cup, you need your big boys to play well, and Europe have had that in Rahm, McIlroy, Fleetwood. I mean, Fleetwood has won 4 points. The Americans have won 4.5. I mean, this is how good our top dogs have played. I don't know. I just think with the Americans that they clearly want to win. You know, I don't believe that they don't want to win and the culture and everything. But ours just isn't forced. And also when you look at it, it's years and years of this happening. It looks like the Americans just rip up the playbook every time they lose and they think, right, let's try something else. Let's try something else. And that just doesn't work.
Scheffler's being compared to Tiger Woods, and not in a good way, because both of them have got poor Ryder Cup records. What do you think it is about a dominant world number 1, certainly in American terms, which means they can't translate it into team sport?
Yeah, well, Scheffler's got more chance of beating 150 people than he has one at the minute, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
I think his win ratio is better on the PGA Tour. What I would say about when you are the best player in the world, you are expected to win, and whoever comes up against you is the underdog. And when it comes to match play in golf, the underdog, nothing to lose, they always seem to play better. And that's all I can think of. What I would say as well is there's an expectation of when you are Scottie Scheffler's partner, you have to step up. You're playing with the world number 1. You're probably thinking the only way we don't win this is if I don't play very well. We will see a different Scheffler when he is playing his own ball because there is no other influence around. And also I heard one of his former teammates say how well prepared Scottie Scheffler is for all of the tournaments he plays. However, at the Ryder Cup, you do not get preparation. You are being pulled from pillar to post. You've got this party. We've got to get on the bus. We've got to go and do this. You don't get the time to put the work in and practice and prepare how you normally would. That could be a slight excuse for Scottie Scheffler. However, he won't accept that. He is not happy, I'm sure, with losing all 4 points.
Sophie, how much of it comes down to captaincy and getting the actual pairings right, the blend between the two individuals right, which obviously Luke Donald's done superbly for Europe?
Massive. I mean, it's getting to the point that this is like a football manager. If you don't get the right manager, it doesn't matter what team and what players that you've got. You'll just have 11 individuals. And in this respect for the Ryder Cup, you'll just have 12 individuals. They go massively into the data. Their vice captains are so important to them. Luke Donald will have lived and breathed this Ryder Cup for 4 years now. Keegan Bradley, he got brought in, obviously, in the last 2 years. He was looking at playing, wasn't he, for the most part of it. And course setup has been a massive, massive issue with the Americans. So as an at-home team, you get to decide a little bit of how the course is set up. We did that really well in Europe. I don't think the Americans have done that very well here. But what I would say is when we were in Paris, we made the golf course tight because we were better drivers of the golf ball. When we went to Italy, we made it that we were better with our irons than they were. So we made a lot of 180-yard shots in. This year, apparently, we're better putters. All I can say is, well, aren't we just better? You know, it's got to that point now that the setup has become irrelevant because these guys have played so well. However, I do think they have messed up on the setup of Bethpage. And like you said with the pairings, Harris English, Colin Morikawa, they should never have been together. Never mind twice.
Well said, Sophie. We'll be cheering on Europe this afternoon and into the early evening. Should have this wrapped up nice and early for first editions in the papers, Henry, actually. You'll be watching the golf, Henry?
Well, watching the football, watching your team.
Well, yeah, no, but then you'll get into the golf after that, surely.
Yeah. eventually, but I mean, you just hope that it's, as you say, wrapped up early. And I'm sure they'll be thinking of your first edition, Shaun.
Indeed. So, victory for Newcastle over Arsenal and victory for the Europeans, which will come first. This is Sunday Edition on talkSPORT with me, Shaun Custis, and Henry Winter. Next up, it's Best of the Best.
his right, fires off the back foot. Calvin Austin, touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers.
To grow the game in so many countries, so being a part of the first game in Ireland is pretty cool.
That was a thing of beauty, Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
Guinness on Tap is my favorite beer in the world.
To the end zone, caught, touchdown! Are you kidding me with that catch? Justin Jefferson! How about this?
You know, just decided to go over and put on a show.
The Vikings! The Vikings are going to win! Are you kidding?
Will be a heck of an experience and a great opportunity to try to compete against a really good football team.
Today, the NFL lands in Dublin for the first time, with talkSPORT 2 bringing you exclusive live coverage of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Minnesota Vikings from Croke Park. Join Will Gavin and NFL Hot Daily host Greg Rosenthal from 2 for live commentary, plenty of colour, and a host of big guests. And keep it with talkSPORT 2 for a full evening of NFL action as we bring you 3 further live commentaries from 6 o'clock. For more content and exclusive interviews, make sure to check out the talkSPORT USA YouTube channel. OK, now it's time for this.
One of the greatest tries ever scored, but she won't get there. Kaylee Hodgkinson is the Olympic champion.
I'm going to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
Oh, Stephen Harmison, one of the great bulls.
Double 12! Oh, my word!
Best of the best on Sunday edition.
I think I'm a special one.
I think he's done it! Yes! You beauty!
Let's be having you!
On talkSPORT.
Yeah, this is a feature where we feature the best of something, not necessarily best players, best matches, etc., but a best incident, best times, best things we wrote about. And today, in the light of Hugo Ekitike's red card for celebrating his tap-in against Southampton during the week, we thought we'd focus on red cards.
Taking another card out for Beckham. It's a red card for David Beckham. Oh no.
The young baby, I think, is strong enough to overcome it if he's given the chance. So I'm saying to the football public, let's give him that chance, because he's going to be very important for us.
And an incident that might have passed off initially without a card ends in Rooney being sent off. Echoes of Beckham in St Etienne 8 years ago.
Did he just wink there?
I think there's every chance that Wayne Rooney could go back to the Man United training ground and stick one on Ronaldo.
Oh, there's a fight going on here between 2 Newcastle players. Kieran Dyer and Lee Bowyer are having a fight. Goodness me, what on earth is going on?
Surely he has to send Oxlade-Chamberlain off. And he has.
He looks like he's sending Kieran Gibbs off. Kieran Gibbs wasn't even involved in the incident.
No, Kieran
it's amazing.
Gibbs is pointing to his head as to say, what is
it.
going on here? It's completely the wrong person.
Oh, how can you get that wrong?
Oh, there's some absolute belters there to discuss, some of which me and Henry were at events. Henry particularly. I mean, you can't do anything but discuss Beckham first, because it's possibly the most famous sending off in English football, particularly after the stick he got from Glenn Hoddle and led to all the abuse that he got for quite a long time, till he redeemed himself, if you like, in 2002.
Yeah, well, he redeemed himself. I mean, he was captain within 2 years. I mean, in Turin, we were there, and although England lost that way, Gattuso ran away with him, and Italy scored. Yeah, I mean, it shows the resilience of the man, the good support structure around him. Alex Ferguson obviously supporting him, but you know, there were effigies being burnt. Some of the front pages weren't particularly kind to him. I think he pretty much had to leave the country and go over to the United States, where the Spice Girls were on tour, almost to sort of get out of the country. So it was a very difficult.
What did you write about it at the time? Because I wasn't a chief football writer then, so I wasn't particularly focusing on the match report. Did you blame him for the fact he went out?
You know me, last with the news. I wrote about Michael Owen's amazing goal. I mean, look, there was an element, obviously, of Beckham in the intro, and you know, I think was it the front page of the Mirror, 10 brave lions and 1 silly boy, and he got a lot of stick for that. But England played so well with 10 men. Obviously, it went to penalties as ever, and Owen just scored that amazing goal. But yeah, I mean, Beckham was, it was silly, but what a servant he's been for England.
And we were there, of course, for Rooney's red card in 2006, which had extra special spice because of Ronaldo winking.
And Shearer, we just heard on that, Shearer said, what's he going to be like when he goes back to Manchester United to training Ronaldo versus Rooney? What was interesting, I spoke to, I think you were there as well, a few of us spoke to Steven Gerrard shortly afterwards, and Gerrard said to Rooney on the bus, he said, God, I couldn't be a teammate of Ronaldo's if he's done that to me internationally. internationally in terms of the wink. But Rooney was very phlegmatic, and he said, no, it's just sort of one of those things, you get on with it. Rooney obviously had been sent off for stamping on Carvalho, and Ronaldo turned to the bench, Portuguese bench, and winked. And the suggestion was they knew that they could wind up Rooney.
We should say, of course, that the foul wasn't actually on Ronaldo. It was on
Carvalho.
But the wink added something to it. And I think we've learned subsequently that Ronaldo isn't really a pal of Rooney's. Rooney wants to be pals with Ronaldo, but Ronaldo isn't particularly with him, because Rooney, I think, said that he thought Messi was a better all-round footballer than Ronaldo.
He probably is. Well, he is.
Well, indeed. But I don't think Cristiano's taken that very well. So... looks like they weren't really pals, even though Rio Ferdinand at the time who I talked to said, I'll sort it out, Wazza and Cristiano, they're great mates, it'll be sorted out. And I think, to be fair, Man United did sort that out afterwards. Certainly on the pitch, they looked as good as any teammates.
That's the strength of Alex Ferguson. He would have got them to focus, forget about England. Manchester United are more important, he would have told them.
Now, two of my favourite ones are here. Not necessarily a good one, this, from my team, Newcastle United, and I didn't even realise these were the same game. Stephen Taylor was sent off, Newcastle centre-back, for going down like he was shot, pretending the ball had hit him in the chest when actually he'd handled it to stop a goal. And in the same game, Bowyer and Dyer had a fight and both got sent off as well. 3 players from one team being sent off in the Premier League. I don't know if it's happened since.
This is the Villa game, 2005, and Kath Cassidy, the legendary tea lady in the press room, actually took a cup of tea into the dressing room for Graham Souness as he was giving a rollicking to Bowyer and Dyer, who he then brought out into the press conference to just sort of talk and apologise and show their contrition, let the team down, let everyone down. And Kath, famously, and she talked about, I think she passed away in 2017, retired in 2015, but she talked about it, I think, in the Chronicle. She talked about the fact that when she saw Bowyer and Dyer, who brought such shame on the team and on her beloved club, she actually went and turned the small portrait of War Jackie Milburn around so that he couldn't see what was going on in terms of the shame that those two players have brought to the club. But that was
quite an afternoon, that one. I was there for I think one of the weirdest sendings off I've ever seen, which was when Kieran Gibbs was sent off after Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain tipped the ball round the post. Now, no, Alex wasn't the goalkeeper for Arsenal. Arsenal got beat 6-0 at Stamford Bridge. Oxlade-Chamberlain dives to his left to a ball that's actually going wide, tips it further round the post. Ref gets his card out and sends off Kieran Gibbs.
Sends off the wrong player.
Absolutely. And they sort of protested, but didn't know whether they should protest too much, because should you really leave the Ox on anyway and let a fullback go? But actually, I think it was Clive Thomas at the time who said the referee and the fourth official and everybody should be I think suspended for the rest of the season or actually kicked out of the game.
And so where are you now on VAR?
I'm all for VAR on that
because
one.
Because it was one of the 4 pillars was mistaken identity.
Yes, and that when it was initially very much mistaken identity. We do have lots of other sendings off stories. We probably haven't got much time to do it.
Got to do
Wenger in the stands, but we did cover him off the other day when he was sent to the stands at Old Trafford and nowhere.
He was angry about a Robin van Persie equaliser not being allowed, and so he kicked a water bottle. I mean, we were there. It was one of the iconic scenes of him standing, arms outstretched.
And you did want to throw in just at the end Zinedine Zidane's sending off.
Yeah, I mean, that was very humiliating for me because the World Cup final, I mean, just a minor part in it, but the FIFA official had just come up and said, I need your vote. Who do you think has been player of the tournament? I said, well, it's obviously got to be Zidane. I looked over the FIFA official's shoulder to see Zidane being given his marching orders for the headbutt on Materazzi. So it's all about timing.
Indeed. Sorry way for his career to finish, that wasn't it?
Yeah, but what a player.
Indeed he was. You're listening to Sunday Edition, where we're looking ahead to today's action, which features Arsenal and Newcastle. It's the last knockings of Sunday edition with myself, Shaun, Custis and Henry Winter, and we were all writing Arsenal off last week after they only managed a 1-1 draw at Man City and looked to be losing ground against Liverpool, but Liverpool have opened the door yesterday and Arsenal can close the gap to 2 points with a win today. Odegaard should be available for the Gunners. Anthony Gordon returns to the Newcastle team. First, let's hear from both managers, Mikel Arteta and Eddie Howe.
I think it's always been competitive against Arsenal in the games that I've been here, and there has been an edge to those games because I think both teams are desperate to win. We sort of encourage that. I think the more competitive we are, the better we play. So certainly we need to bring that side of our game.
Incredibly beautiful. I think it's one of the best football atmosphere in this country. I think when you, as a player, as a fan, as a coach, you want to live in this atmosphere. They play every single ball with you. It's electric. There is so much support out there, and it's one team, one city. I think that makes it a different as well, and to play as an opposition as well is such a challenge and opportunity at the same time. So great atmosphere to play.
There is quite a bit of edge nowadays between Newcastle and Arsenal. The ball that never went out, even though he thought it had gone out. And of course, the Carabao Cup semi-final last year, where Newcastle were comfortable victors over Arsenal. So they're proper challenges against Arsenal. But we do tend to focus on the top two and whether Arsenal can not overtake Liverpool today, but beat them to the title.
Yeah, probably one of the most important goals that Eddie Nketiah's scored for Arsenal. but not being an Arsenal, obviously.
Crystal Palace against Liverpool, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's a fabulous fixture. In fact, one of the most memorable games of certainly those that I covered was 2004 when Jonathan Woodgate, I have never seen a player, a defender, play better against Thierry Henry. I mean, I was actually looking up some of the old match reports, and the Northern Echo described the majestic Jonathan Woodgate as the calm authority controlling Thierry Henry. And he was brilliant because Thierry was absolutely in his pomp then. And Jonathan Woodgate just had one of those fantastic games as a defender. That was a 0-0, but look, they're usually goals. I'm sure dugout Cam will be busy today, keeping an eye on Tyndall and Arteta. But I thought Arteta spoke well. I mean, Howe always speaks well, but Arteta spoke well yesterday in terms of sort of praising the atmosphere, even if that's handing out sweets, if it's deliberate. But it's true.
It's interesting. He looked quite relaxed and he spoke very well. And that was before he knew that Liverpool had beaten Crystal Palace.
Yeah, but I think it makes sense.
I don't think he was... Sorry, I had lost to Crystal Palace. I don't think he was necessarily expecting that.
No, I'm
even though Palace are playing very well this season. No, the only unbeaten team now in the Premier League.
But it's sensible of Arteta to sort of praise the environment that you're going into, knowing that it's likely to be noisy, likely to be hostile. It's the old Jose Mourinho thing of the game starts in the press conference. So that was sensible by Arteta. But look, absolutely, I'm sure it'll spill over at some point.
What did you make of Arsenal's performance against City last week? They got a bit of criticism for not being able to finish them off.
I mean, I was there and just talking to fans outside the ground as I was going in, and when they heard that Eze wasn't starting, they were disappointing. You've got, as he brought him on for the second half, and they were far more attack minded. And I hope Eze plays today. I mean, Eze is a fantastic 10. It'd be interesting to see the balance with him and Odegaard, who's back and should be back starting, having missed 3 games with his shoulder injury. Bukayo Saka should be starting as well, after his hamstring. But Martinelli's done well. But then whenever I see Martinelli, and it's the same with Trossard, I just think they're amazing impact substitutes when they're
finishers.
Finishers.
I mean, really?
This whole finisher thing. I'm sorry, finishers were super subs when we were growing.
They were, but there was only one of them.
There was only
got
one of it. Yeah,
3, 4, or 5 of them.
Okay, so it's finisher singular.
So you're not having it. People who are finishers.
I understand that, but I think it's partly PR to keep your bench happy.
I know we're very quick, probably in the tabloid world, to write teams off, but there was a sense last weekend that Arsenal again were looking at possibly second place because Liverpool's... Okay, they were getting late winners, but there was a feeling that once Liverpool really get it together, they're going to romp away, and Arsenal still can't get over their old problems of finishing teams off. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, particularly when you looked at Liverpool and you think, well, they've got these big signings, and apart from Ekitike, they've got good players that they've brought in. They've paid substantial sums for them. At some point, they are going to settle in, whether it's Kirkes, who hasn't settled in, Florian Wirtz, who we know is a fabulous player.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Well, he's just picking up the rhythm of the and the pace and the physicality of the game. He could have scored. Yes, they should have scored, and they will eventually settle in, and Liverpool will be a prodigious team and a threat. But obviously, we want to see a title race. I mean, look, a few days ago, everyone was writing off Manchester City, and then they go and put 5 past Burnley. Okay, it's with respect, it's Burnley. They're doing well, and they've got a good chance of staying up. But, you can't write Manchester City off. It's very early.
Another fairly significant result I felt yesterday was Chelsea losing at home to their nursery club, Brighton. And Brighton love nothing better than beating Chelsea, I think. Made loads of money out of them and still beat them.
200-odd million they've made out of them.
Like that.
Plus
and
also
15 different members of staff have ended up at Chelsea, players or coaches or whatever. Coming off the back of the Club World Cup and their Conference League win, they would go into this season with a bit of optimism. I know you say they were tired, etc.
You've always downplayed that, but it's clearly having do you think it is an issue? Absolutely. Whether it's mental tiredness, whether it's physical as well. I mean, some of the injuries have been contact, and that's nothing to do with the fact that they had a busy summer. But it can't be coincidence. This.
But do you think Cole Palmer, for instance, you put that down to the summer?
Well, it's an adductor, so there is an element of not being able to give something like that a proper rest.
Maresca's not a man for changing. You've often talked about how at Leicester City, the fans still weren't having him, even though he did very well for them because they didn't like the football he played. What are you sensing about how he's perceived at Chelsea?
Well, you know what Chelsea's like. It's a kind of revolving door with managers. But I think he deserves a little bit of time because he had a very strong end to the season. Got in the Champions League, got them a European trophy and won them the Club World Cup. And their first half performance in the Club World Cup against PSG, the European champions, was outstanding.
And what better for them to be facing Jose in the Champions League?
Oh, it's brilliant.
You're looking forward to that?
Yeah, because, look, Jose's not the manager that he was, but he's still the box office and headline.
I think this looks like a good fit for him, though, being back at Benfica, where actually he did start. We tend to forget that.
And he's got unfinished business.
He has got unfinished business, and I think he'll love it. I actually think the Chelsea fans might give him quite a warm welcome. I know the second phase of Jose didn't finish too well, and he got a bit critical of them when he returned with Man United and Spurs, but I actually think he'll enjoy it, and they'll enjoy him being back.
They love his ego, they love his character, they love his swagger, and he lives locally.
He does. Yes, he's coming over to see his son, apparently. Just quickly before we go, we mustn't forget Aston Villa, because I get told off every time I forget about Aston Villa. What's going on with them?
Well, Morgan Rogers is not playing well. Ollie Watkins is not playing well. But look, I know it's your favourite phrase. There's a good player in there. They're good players in there, and they will come good.
But it's a bit of a drop-off from last season, isn't it?
It is.
When they had such a good time. And what hugely has changed?
Should have kept Rashford.
Yes. And on that note, we finish with Henry Winter Bingo. Should have kept Rashford. That's it for Sunday edition this week. Next up, it's the warm-up with Max Rushton and Barry Glendenning.